Now we're joined by Henny van Vuren, who is a director at Open Secrets and author. Great to have you with us. Henny, she's saying that she held meetings with the presidency. There's nothing wrong with that. What do you think?
Yeah, Francis, good evening. I think the concern is that the public protector in this matter this was her first big test as public protector, big political investigation, apartheid-era economic crimes, and at every turn there seems to be a misstep, unfortunately, from the public protector's office, given how important this matter is. I think the latest allegations, let's call them that, from the side of the Reserve Bank, which suggests that the public protector met with the president at the same time as we know that there are a whole range of interests that are linked to the president's son, the president's son's business associates to President Zuma and the Gupta family, in the manner in which oversight is managed over the banks linked to allegations of state capture. I think it would have been in her interest, the interest of her office, the interest of the perception of the independence of her office, to disclose publicly and in particular to the Reserve Bank that she had consulted with the president. And of course, this crucial allegation that, or at least her admission, that she did meet with the State Security Agency, but not only to speak to them about their earlier investigation, which they had authorized, the so-called SABC investigation into apartheid-era economic crime, but to talk about the Reserve Bank's mandate. The state spies, the State Security Agency, Minister David Mkhwebane and his agents have nothing to do with the mandate and the vulnerability of the Reserve Bank, and everything to do with matters of other matters of state security. And it begs the question, what was she meeting with state security about? And were they, in fact, the minister also overstretching his mandate or his officials, in fact?
The big question is, if there are missteps, is it because she doesn't understand her role, incompetent? She has been accused of that, or does this point to something more malicious?
Yeah, I think that at the moment, and I think if we put this in the context of what's happening at the moment in South Africa, the interference of state security agencies, the concerns around state capture allegations throughout the state, I think we as South Africans have reason to be concerned. We have reasons to be concerned that there may be some manner of interference in this matter. It's used as a way to challenge the Reserve Bank's independence, not in a manner that's in the interest potentially of South Africans, but in the interest of a narrow, small group of people. But importantly as well, it undermines the key question of what really happened in terms of economic crime during apartheid. There is an overwhelming amount of evidence that talks about economic crime involving banks across the globe, large corporations, that I think I would argue, as in my organization, far outstrips the issue of ABSA and the Reserve Bank alone. And in making these decisions, what the public protector does is she muddies the water for any genuine attempt for accountability for those who profited off the back of apartheid during the last 15 years. That perhaps is another one of the consequences, the very dangerous consequences of these many missteps that our public protector has been making over the past couple of months.
Are you saying, in fact, it could have been a positive thing, looking at the Bancorp bailout, but using that as a springboard to act rationally, to go back in time, see what was done and start making things right? But now it's becoming a whole lot of other issues.
Absolutely. I think this was an opportunity potentially for there to be an airing of a matter. We've heard the manner in which this particular Bancorp matter and the SABC investigation, really just an investigation by a group of British bounty hunters, former intelligence agents who were employed by the South African government in the late 1990s to investigate economic crimes. The issue is far bigger than the interests of the small group of men. It's in the interests of all South Africans to understand the longer story of state capture. The kind of mistakes that the public protector is making, either through ignorance in terms of the law or willful in terms of political choices that she's making, I think has a potentially damaging effect for us to see real accountability for the far bigger story of apartheid-era economic crime.
The DA has outlined some issues that point to her bias, the party says, when she failed to act when the president was trying to interdict the release of the state capture report, when she jumped to his defense, when criminal charges against the former public protector were laid for releasing the transcript of her interview. She's been sitting on reports when she admitted to stepping outside of her mandate in this constitutional court matter. Is it enough to point to real bias?
Yeah, I think it is crucial now that the Portfolio Committee on Justice considers the Public Protector's actions, calls her into account for these. I think the Public Protector needs to perhaps consider exactly where she sees herself in relation to her office in future. If she fails at an investigation of this matter, of this magnitude, and of course where there's a lot of public interest in this, I think the real question is the Gogo Dlaminis, the cases the Public Protector has always been so effective at also dealing with, the smaller cases of economic crime, corruption, the abuse of power, where there isn't so much oversight as we see now. Is there potential under her leadership that she'll be failing ordinary citizens in protecting their interests? And I think that's not what we want to see from a constitutionally enshrined body such as the Public Protector.
Well, the DA says it will use its power on that portfolio committee and it wants her removed. But it's not a very easy thing to do, is it, to remove a public protector?
No, absolutely not. I think as we've seen, the manner in which perhaps the opposition parties, including the DA and EFF and others, had imagined through a vote of no confidence that the president could be removed. Similarly, there are correctly barriers in place to make the removal of the public protector in any the public protector an easy task. The requirement for 2/3 of members of parliament to vote her out is precisely to prevent potentially corrupt group of politicians from trying to remove a public protector who's being rigorous in her or his implementation of her or his mandate. So I do think that it would be a difficult and arduous task. I would imagine that there will be many people, particularly within the governing party amongst others, that would want to defend her in this position. And I don't think we would see her necessarily being moved out of that position anytime soon. But I think crucially, she needs to take some responsibility for the manner in which she's been conducting her office. Her officials around her need to be taking responsibility, and she needs to do far more than she's done right now by simply denying these matters in order to instill public confidence and public trust in this crucial organ of our constitutional democracy.
Finally, and quite quickly, Henny, what about the Reserve Bank? This remedial action that its constitutional mandate be changed has already been set aside in the court, but it continues to pursue her and it really wants to assert its own independence. Sometimes when it does that, we see the Rand react. It raises the whole issue, even for rating agencies, of the independence of institutions. Is it doing the right thing by pushing this matter?
Yeah, I think it's an indication of the amount of pressure that the bank is under right now. But equally, I think the bank does need to show accountability in other matters. There are a number of instances where civil society organizations are trying to gain access to bank records of apartheid-era malfeasance, where the bank refuses to comply with a constitutional obligation to provide access to information. So I think the bank in itself, like we demand of the public protector, needs to act consistently in terms of our constitution and the laws of this country.
All right, thank you so much. Henny van Vuuren, author and director at Open Secrets. Peter?